and we're back in record time.
Good morning. This is the 5th interview in a series called Voices of Harpswell. And we have a gentleman with us this morning who's done a lot of things and seen a lot of things in his lifetime. And so, could you tell us your name and when and where you were born?
Gareth Anderson. I was born in 1934 in the village of Cundy's Harbour, in what turned out to be a seine shed.
And you spent your childhood down to Cundy's Harbour?
Yes, I did. It was a great place to grow up, I can tell you that. A lot of good times.
What's some of the earliest things you remember?
The earliest things I remember is changing my mother's apron. I hated it. She always rattled before I was born. That was probably a poor joke. The earliest things I remember is going to school in Portland, Maine. My mother moved me to Portland, Maine, put me in knickers and diamond stockings and Buster Brown shoes, sent me to school, and the kids pummeled me all day long, and I had to give up on that. Ask for short pants, long pants.
What are some of the things you remember about growing up in Cundy's Harbour?
Oh, we had a lot of fun in Stewart's Pond ice skating, and we hunted a lot when we were young. You can't hunt over there now, there's many houses. If you took a shotgun now, they'd have you in jail in 5 minutes. Maybe you'd get out on the water a little bit. But I would walk from my home up to the cemetery up in Cranberry on Saturday morning and down the other side, and no one would ever see me. In fact, speaking of quarantines, my cousin came down from Massachusetts. He's quarantined with scarlatina. I believe John Sylvester was a health officer at the time. And I made a deal with my mother. My brother and I were there, and my cousin who had the scarlatina, my 2 sisters, said, "You let us out of the house in the daylight. We won't come back till after dark, no one knows hunting." We hunted for 2 solid weeks, and no one ever saw us, not an eye. You couldn't pull it off now, ever.
You must have gone fishing quite a little.
Yes, I started fishing early. All the boys did. I had traps when I was, I guess 10 or 12 years old. I remember I tried to buy some from Raymond Davis. He was a retired fisherman. He was ill at the time, actually, and he had some traps on Little Island, north end Little Island. I saw them there, and I tried to buy them. He's a fellow that looked right up in the air when he talked. He said, "Oh, no, you can't buy them. You'll fall over and get drowned." I said, "I have traps off now." I pestered him for 5 days. Finally, he said, "You bring your mother and your father down." He said, "And I'll talk to them." He sold me 11 traps for $10.
And what sort of boat did you have?
I had a little skiff, and I rode to my traps for a long time till I had an outboard. Believe it or not, we hauled our traps in the morning and the afternoon. I think our traps were so poorly made, or perhaps they wouldn't hold lobsters, but we always got lobsters in the morning and we got lobsters in the afternoon.
Of course, you didn't get into any deviltry or anything like that, did you?
No, not much. Yeah.
No.
I remember we built a log cabin in the woods one time. A bunch of us. We were old enough, I think, to then know about it. We did it anyway. We cut some trees down, made a nice log cabin in it. The next year we were in there. We hid it between what we call Sheep Pasture Pond and Stewart's Ice Pond. And we had ski slopes and stuff. We built in the wood and everything. And we were sitting in there and had the fire going. Someone said, "Hey, the cabin." Stepped out, and it was Oscar Stewart, and he says, "Well, how the hell did you get this camp here? Well, we built it." He said, "This is my land. These are my trees your boys cut. Harmon York, so you can have the camp." That kind of disarmed him. He saw the smoke coming out of a chimney. He looked in there, and we were sitting around in there. Had fire right in the middle of the floor. He wasn't a bad old guy. He's kind of gruff, but he was a laurel. He was a deputy sheriff and a postman and everything else combined.
Well, you didn't know your father very well or for very long. Tell us about him and what you know about him.
Who's this?
Your father.
My own father?
Yeah.
He and my mother divorced when I was a baby, and I never did live with him, actually. But he was a nice man. He was a gentleman and very respectful of ladies. I never ever heard him swear. Never heard him curse. He did chew tobacco, and one time I went over to visit, and I picked up some firewood. It's some tobacco juice on it, and I threw it down, and I said, "That's the nastiest damned habit I ever saw in one house." And after a while, he came in, and his second wife said, "What's the matter with Gary?" And he said, "Oh, he gets some tobacco juice on his fingers." She lit into him. She said, "Well, that's a dirty habit anyway." And he took his plug out, threw it in the stove, and never chewed again. He was drafted into World War II, and he was 43 years old.
Well,
Because at the time he was not married again, and he was a single man. I was not a dependent. I was living with my mother and my stepfather.
yeah.
And they drafted him when he was 43 years old, put him in the military police in England. He served on all those bases over there.
I know you spoke fondly of your grandmother, who had the same name as I do. Tell us about her a little bit, too.
Yeah, my grandmother Alexander.
Yeah,
Yeah, her husband was some related to your
yeah.
forebears. I think it was my story was a bunch of boys come over from Ireland, 5 of them, something like that, and they split up in different places. I think that's the story.
Yeah.
We called her Nana, and my sister, when she had grandkids, they called her Nana. And she was a great person. She had a big, good-sized family, 4 daughters and 2 sons. And she died relatively young, about 70, 75, something like that. Most of my people lived to be 100, most of them.
Yeah. What school did you go to, Gary? Was it Cranberry Horn Hill School? Or
I started in Portland. My mother married again and moved to Portland. And I went there for a while, and we moved back to the harbor. And Mary Gansky was the teacher. Her name was Johnson then, but she married William Gansky later. And she wrote to them to get my records, and they didn't come. I never knew this till about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, why I was in a class behind my wife. We were the same age. They couldn't get the records, so she started me over again in the 1st grade. So I did the 1st grade twice, because she couldn't get the records from Portland. And I met her one time in the restaurant, we were talking about it, and it came up that I was a year behind my wife. She said, "Well, I couldn't get your records." She just started you over again, the only thing I could do.
Huh.
The state had to know that you'd finished every class, I guess. She was a good teacher. But my first teacher was Katie Eastman. And that was a disciplinarian, I'll tell you that.
Huh.
She cuffed you for being noisy, for being too quiet, for coming in the door, for going out the door, for wearing your hat, for not wearing it, on and on and on. But I credit her with turning out some fine citizens. Not a politician in the bunch, either.
What did you usually have to eat? Did you eat fish, clams, lobsters, or did you have other, grow a garden too?
We had a garden every year, about, probably 200 yards long by 50, 60 yards. It was pretty good. We had potatoes and corn and things. My mother canned everything she laid her hands on. And her cellar in the fall was just a gorgeous thing to look at. Canned tomatoes and pickles and everything. But her downfall one time, I took her out fishing for bogies. I had to rig with a weight and I could throw it in the air like that, throw it, hook it, and it was like get my lobster bait. Took her out, she got excited. She loved to fish, she got very excited. Got quite a few pokies and come in and she said, "No, I want you to fillet those pokies." "What do you mean?" "I'm going to salt them." I said, "You can't eat those." She said, "Well, I don't want to waste them." I said, "I want to use for lobster bait." She said, "Well, you fillet them, you can use the racks." So I did it. One time we were down selling, my father looked at that, my stepfather, he said, "What's that?" He said, "That's Mother's pogies." He said, "Well, how did you get them in that?" I told him. He said, "You can't eat those. There was a 1/4 and a half an inch of yellow fat on top of that." We threw them out. The pigs wouldn't even eat them. We always raised a couple of pigs. And let's see, Ethel Dowling had two, and the minister had two. The minister's two suffocated on the way down. We had to get him two more. Remember those songs, Mazzy Oats, Dozy Oats, and Little Lambsy Ivy? They named all those pigs those names. Mazzy Oats and Dozy Oats were ours, and one of them grew to be 300, and the other was 125 pounds. He was a racer. He just forecast rain, and he was out of the pen. And my uncle used to kill hogs for people in the late winter, early fall. And I used to go around and help him. And my stepfather was a nice man. He never hated to kill anything, but he'd shoot him with his 30-30, and then Uncle would stick him, hang him up, bleed him out. And he did shoot Dozy Dotes. He said, let that little critter go by me. He said, he upended him there. He said, that pays me for all the running after me. I've seen half the people on Holbrook Street chasing that one pig. He was just an escape artist.
What was your first job, Gary?
First job?
Yeah, aside from lobstering.
My first wage-paying job was at Watson's store, working for Mr. Watson, Rob Watson. He was a fine gentleman, and Sidney was a fine man too. Mr. Watson, any lady that came near him, he immediately took his hat off, put it right there, and he'd elbow me, and I can't help it today, I'm still doing that. He told me his philosophy. He said, I want every penny that's coming to me, and I want my customer to get every penny that's coming to them. And he was true to his word.
So you clerked there?
No, I ran the wharf for him.
Oh, you ran the wharf. Oh.
Bought and sold lobster, gasoline. At that time, the whiting business was very prominent down there. They were fishing right to Mulson, the Meadows River. You could see them loading the boats up, and they'd come in. They'd tie up one right after another, and we'd sell them gas and groceries and stuff, whatever they needed. Also, in my spare time, I'd help lump, and that's a tough job. It's a nasty job. Lumping is bailing the fish out. Put water in it and bail them out. And Gene Moody ran the wharf for a guy named Paul Davis. And it was, I think they had about 40 or 50 employees at one time. They ran 3 shifts. They had to get those fish out and get them in barrels of ice. They had an ice grinding machine. It was a heck of an operation.
So they bought fish in addition to what they caught with their own boats?
No, Watson didn't have any boats at that time. The Angie Watson was a sailing. That was
earlier.
It was much earlier, but
yeah.
The one these were people from the harbor in Pittsburgh, Sebasco village, who were draggers. Mert Dowling from the harbor and John Morgan. And some guys, Henry Alexander and those guys on the other side come over. There was probably 12 or 15 boats, I guess, and there's one come up from Rockland.
Wow.
The funny story about that is they called him Uncle Grover. His grandson, his granddaughter was his crew. Uncle Grover, like a lot of fishermen in those days, they didn't have teeth. He had a short stem pipe around a bunch of string around so it wouldn't fall out of his mouth. And he asked Uncle Henry to come over and have lunch with him. He said yes, he'd come over, and he'd come over and sit down. He had a little shipmate stove going, had a fry pan with salt pork in it. He'd filleted out a big dinghy and a whiting. They called them English hake, dingies, whiting, all kinds of different names, but the same fish. He filleted it out, rolled it in flour. Uncle Henry said that stove was going and that fry pan was smoking, and he said there was a big drool on the end of that pipe from no teeth. He said it was about the viscosity of 3-in-1 oil. And as the old man would talk, he said that would go up and down. He said, and I knew that was going to fall in that fry pan. And he said laid that fillet in there, and that drool fell in. They went like that. And he said, you know, Uncle Rover, he said, I got to go change the oil in my engine. He said, I up out of that companionway. His grandson had never seen a slingshot. We made them all the time, my cousin Theodore and I. And we sold him slingshot fast. We made 50 cents a piece. First time he didn't know how to run it. I mean, I had never seen a kid that didn't know what a slingshot was.
Oh, yeah.
Never been off the boat, I guess. Did a lot of accidents over there. John Morgan's boat blew up. Clyde Westcott, John Eastman's, Henry Alexander's. Gasoline engines, they had a leak in the build.
Yeah.
I was in the Coast Guard, and they when I went to Petty Officer School, they told me that a leak of gasoline in the whole of a small boat, like 2 or 3 sticks of dynamite. It would blow the floorboards, blow the men overboard. Blew a young Lennon Alexander out high in the mast. They said he was high in the mast, but fortunately he went over the side, not back onto the deck. And Clyde Westcott blew his boat up at Holbrook's Wharf, which is now the snack place. Uncle Bobby blew his up at Christine's at Watson's Wharf. And John Eastman blew his up on the moor and blew him back under the stern. His son-in-law, Jim Walner, was there at the time. He got burned. They both got burned quite badly. That was a brand new boat.
Now, I know you worked for the state of Maine. When did you start work?
For the state of Maine?
How old were you when you started for the state?
38 years old. I'd done everything. I worked around town as an electrician. I worked as a commercial electrician up in, I helped wire the high school in Livermore Falls. I wired the Bardwell House in Brunswick, the Additions Hospital. New Tampax factory in Lewiston. But I did some local wiring around there, and I was surprised how many houses had been moved. I'd be working in the house, and they'd say, you know, this used to be on Haskell's Island or somewhere. Mm-hmm. They thought nothing of moving houses around those days. But I had, my father-in-law, Henry Allen, said to me, he said, you must be tired of crawling around in attics or cellar in the summertime. Why don't you buy sea moss? He was buying sea moss, so they opened a wharf out the harbor. I saw that there was a good potential there, so I opened a wharf in Friendship and another one in Cape New Wigan. I trucked sea moss for a couple of 3 years. Hit a sensational wreck over here on the approach to Gunpoint Road. Lived through that, and someone thought I was making more money than I was reporting, and they turned me in the IRS, and they did a review of my. I'll never forget it. And then I went down to the office in Bath, opened the door, and a nameplate on it said Miss Crowell, C-R-E-W-L. I said, we better go home, Miss Crowell. And she was Crowell. She said, and Gareth, she said, looks to me like you raked £1 million. I said, this bag of bones, £1 million of sea moss. I said, I bought £1 million, but I didn't rake it. That's impossible. They were insistent that I raked £1 million of sea moss. I went through 3 of those people. And finally I said, look, you treat me like a criminal. There might be a mistake in those books, but anyway, they settled on it. But he said, the deal is, we want it right now. We want the money now. He said, we'll sell your home, we'll give you what's left, and we'll take our money. I said, you're going to put 20-odd men out of work to get, I think it was $1,200, I figured I owed them something like that. I had a little money saved up for a new truck, so I gave it to him and quit. The safety officer job opened in Fish and Wildlife in Augusta, Modern Service, and I went to work for them. I interviewed for 39 people, and I come out for the top 13, and I come out the top 3, and then finally got it. My life experience, my education wasn't up to some of them. My life experience, nobody could touch me that way. I'd done everything. I had every instructor rated in the NRA had, home firearm, pistol, rifle, shotgun, hunter safety. And Coast Guard experience was quite extensive. I have an ordnance in there. And I never figured I worked a day in my life for the state. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Good.
I still miss it. During my time there, I handled 4,260 cases. 4,260 cases. That's deaths in snowmobile, shooting, parachute didn't open, search and rescue, on and on and on. That was a very busy occupation.
Yeah. And you were the Warden Service Safety Officer for a lot of that time, weren't
25
you?
years.
25?
Well, no, sorry. In '82, They made me the state search and rescue coordinator in 82, from 82 to 97. 80, 17 years I was. 80. I retired in 97. That was a very interesting time. There had never been a search and rescue coordinator. It was all new ground I plowed.
I know you had a good record. How many people did your team find and get out of the woods and places
We were
like that?
90, almost 100% successful.
Good.
We did find them with a body, one or the other. There's a handful we didn't find. There's a man in Baxter Park. There's a young man, and there's an old man, 84 years old. There's a young man, 22. We never found either of them. I suspected, and a lot of guys agreed with me, that the elderly man didn't want to be found because he loved to hike. He liked to hike mountains in Vermont. He liked to hunt them in Maine, and he said some things to his daughter when he left that indicated to us that he didn't intend to come out of that, and he never did. But the boy left a message, and we thought he killed himself. There's not very much funny about that business, but we were looking for him again. We were up there. Every year I pulled off a statewide search and rescue drill with the Army and the Navy and the Coast Guard and everybody in Baxter Park. Everybody that would participate, we invited them all. We were up there between the two lakes in Millinocket, and there were ranger trucks parked and game warden trucks parked. Deborah Powell was our first female game warden. She turned out to be a good canine officer also. And she was in charge of training the search and rescue dogs. And let me just say that the volunteers did that, most of them. And the volunteers, we never could have accomplished anything without volunteers. She said, this guy is almost ready to have even his dog qualified. Would you take this clipboard and check him out? And I said, sure. So going along, this is a track, and he's following it. And this huge bus pulled up, RV, and the doors went, shh. This guy said, what in the world's going on? He came right down through all those vehicles. I said, we're looking for a young man. He said, how'd you go missing? He said, 2 years ago. He said, and that dog's still following him? Now this is a chance to be a real maniac, right? You don't get many chances.
No.
I said, no. I said, well, he's a young dog. He's doing the best he can. And his wife said, close that damn door. They've been pulling that stuff on us ever since we got here. She knew in an instant she'd been here. The reason we were up there, it was one of the lieutenants said, why don't we have the search and rescue drill this year in Baxter? Maybe we can find his remains. Let me just say that hunters in the fall would always find the remains. Someone would go missing, and it wasn't our job to look for a missing person. We're looking for lost people. I mean, there's probably people missing in Maine right now. For a week, probably half a dozen. If we did that, there was only 100 of us. And we had a very clear delineation between a missing person and a lost person. And but these people were missing, and we didn't know they'd gone missing in the woods or something. They'd go in to commit suicide or die or whatever. It seemed like the grouse hunters would always find the bones. They were around the perimeter looking for grouse. Many, many times.
When you were growing up, did you have chores to do around the house?
You better believe it. Well, we had pigs. I had to feed the pigs. I mean, I'd get ready for high school and get all cleaned up and everything. We'd go slop the pig, and they'd knock a bucket out of my hand. And I taught those pigs to go lie down. My father would go, he said, those pigs would go lay down. He said, when you go feed them, he said, I never saw that before. I said, well, you thrash them enough, they'll do what you want them to do. Pigs are smart.
Oh, yeah.
But they're also awful. They're hogs, and, they'll rush, when you feed them. So I had an old pair of leather boots on. My great-grandfather, William, Joel, lived in Raggedale, and he made boots. Now, the early fishermen didn't use rubber boots, they used leather boots. They'd oil them. And they had hobnail boots for gripping on the decks, and they were heavy leather and heavily oiled. And he made them, and they'd go out there and buy those boots from him in Ragged Island. Well, there's a guy named Maloney lived in the fish house down there for a while. We don't know where he came from. And he left his boots, and Ed Alexander gave them to me. Take those old boots, Maloney, home. And he said, and I took them home, and that's all I wore, and I slopped the hog up over your knee. And we had, every morning I'd go to Oscar Stewart's through the woods to get milk and eggs, whatever we needed. Usually milk, cream. He had a drinking uncle who used to make an og-nag, he called it. And Francis Stewart would say, I'd say, I gotta have 4 or 5 quarts of this, and a couple of them. He says, your uncle must be making an og-nag. He'd get drinking, he'd make his og-nag any time he thought of it, you know. He wasn't a seasonal man. He lived alone. By the way, my uncle Joseph Bradley, he married one of my mother's sisters. He told Francis, he was an awful critter, he told Francis, he said, you know, you can steal hens really. He said, I could clean your hen house out in the night. How can you do that? He said, as they're roasting on the roast, he said, you take your fingers, push the feet like that, and they'll set on your finger, and you walk out. Do it very carefully and drop them in a bag. Went along a little while, and she lost a lot of hens. And she called him, she said, Joseph, you been in my hen pen? He said, no. She said, I got a dozen, 15 hens missing. And I said, there's one other guy knows about it, and he told her who it was. So she gave him a hard time. He didn't know anything about it. Well, Oscar had a big pile of short logs that he's going to buck up for hardwood, for firewood, and so they figured a hawk scared the hens, and they jumped in the holes. Because they get in, they couldn't back out. Oh, they got the feathers wrong, and then they're suffocated. So she called Joe up and apologized for that. He said, that's quite all right. He said, I guess you're right. Well, we got thinking about that, a bunch of us. We said, I wonder if you could really do that. So we went to hen pen one night, and I had a hen on either finger. It worked perfectly. And my buddy had a hand on either finger, and he stepped in the water. Well, they had one of those automatic waters. You talk about pandemonium. I was clawed and batted, and here comes someone running down the catwalk. We out of there and put for the woods. But yes, you can do it. You can actually do it. And that's one of these guys that I was with, he was really serious. He said, I got to call Mother and tell her to unplug the deep fat fryer. He was going to have some Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You must have played baseball.
Yes, we had a team we called the GI Bears, Great Island Bears. We went around playing people. And I used to pitch and play first base.
Yeah.
And I could throw quite hard.
I remember when I was at West Harpswell Grammar School, we had a team too, and we came over and played the boys from Cundy's Harbor at Cranberry Horn Hill School.
Yeah.
Well, the ball field sloped so bad towards right field and first base that if you could hit the ball to the opposite field, you were assured of a home run. But if you were right-handed and you pulled the ball, you probably would be thrown out.
That field would taper down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you hit one over to that side, it would take right off and go right into the woods.
You couldn't hardly see the right fielder at all. I threw so hard one time I separated my sternum. Oh. That's a very painful injury. Wow. And I couldn't play ball all that summer. I tried to pitch anything. I played a little first base, but I couldn't hit very well either. The shock of the bat would hit. That's a painful injury.
Yeah. I know you make a lot of things, Gary. Like the walking stick you got today.
This was something that my wife said. She said, you always make them straight. Why don't you get a crooked one? So I brought this one home and she said, now you're doing something. I cut this on my property down there. I don't know what it is. I think it's that buttonwood. They used to make buttons out of it. It's hard as flint.
Do you get most of your wood for 'em around here, or do you get it up country?
I go up to Frankie Beaker's camp up in, I think it's West Sumner. And his boys bought a big tract of land across the road from his camp. You go up there in the woods quite a ways. And I like striped maple. It was moose maple, they call it, because the moose strip the bark off in the winter and eat it. But it never grows much bigger than, that would be a good size one. It just doesn't seem to get very big for some reason. I've never seen a large one. Most people don't capture cut it because they know they're not going to get anything out of it. And I go up there. In fact, I was up there day before yesterday and brought back a bunch. But I had Lyme disease and I have to be more careful. My balance is completely shot now. And I just want to, maybe there's an opportunity to say that people be careful of those ticks. They're very dangerous.
Oh yeah, I had it last summer, and I had a bad time.
Yeah.
It can be really bad.
And there's at least 3 diseases they carry that they know of now. And in fact, I interviewed a couple of ladies in the station on that subject. And they did a positive on me, and the thing of it was that I had done something for the Fish and Game Department on ticks. And one of the retired chief wardens said the other day, he said, "You remember when you were talking about ticks? And they told you they didn't know what you're talking about?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And they told me to forget about it. But I went ahead with the project, and I did a program how to identify and what to do and who to go to and all that for the game wardens and the field biologists. One of the retired wardens' wives called, she said, "You of all people, you got Lyme disease?" I said, "Yeah, after all the shooting off I did in my mouth. I got it myself, but they get in places you don't look if you don't do some serious checking." And I hadn't hit it. Well, they put this medicine in me that keeps it going to your brain. I guess I had it quite bad, and I was sick before I got home. So they changed it, and for the next 21 days, I lost 24 pounds, and I didn't have it. And I've never got my weight back.
Wow.
And it's destroyed my balance. I fall all the time. In fact, the doctor sent me to school to learn how to fall down and get up again. It's been going on now quite some time, but I'm free of Lyme disease.
So you went up and got wood for walking sticks, so you're able to do things.
Yes, I'm making walking sticks, and I make dustpans out of old number plates and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of duck decoys you made.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's been I don't know when I started making them. I know there's a decoy over in Watson store I made when I was 14 years old.
yeah.
And it doesn't look anything like I make now, but it worked at the time. And I had a great pleasure here a couple of years ago teaching your grandson how to make decoys. His father come down to see me on that. I can't remember the name of the program, capstone program that the seniors do it down there. And it was my gain because Sam and I have turned out to be great friends. He's a fine young man. Well, he had a young man, friend in the junior class named Riley Morin, and Riley asked him if he thought I'd do it with him, and I said, certainly, bring him down. So he came down, and now I have 2 young friends. And they take good care of me, They took me hunting with them, and they watch me like a hawk, and if I go to fall, they'll grab me, and get me straight.
Yeah.
It's been a great blessing to me.
They're good guys.
They sure are. I probably wouldn't have known them other than that very much. I knew your grandson was around, but I mean, now I really know him.
Did you ever knock on the door of a church?
I've been to church every day here. Every week they've had it since you couldn't get in the building. And I went with my wife. She was a member of the Kellogg Church since she was a little girl.
Yeah.
I went there with the wife. I was a treasurer of the Sunday school at Cundy's High when I grew up. It's a Nazarene church. You even smiled. They were suspicious of you over there. Someone said that the Picaroon, the British ship, the Picaroon, came into Cundy's Harbor to have some revelry. It's in Wheeler's book.
Yeah.
I said, well, there was a Nazarene church. If you even smiled, they thought you were having a revel. They didn't discount it.
So that old saying's true, that you ought to smile so people wonder what you're up to.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They're very strict, and they make the Quakers look like heathens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my mother went to church regularly. My father didn't, and my brother and I would invent any excuse we could find to get out of it, so we could go roaming around in the woods. I expect you probably were the same when you were young.
Yeah, well, you know, if you're told to do something, it's born in Americans to revolt. If you ask them to do it, they'll usually do it, but if you tell them to do it, they don't want to do it.
Right.
But Ann and I went to church quite often together, and she was a member of that church since she was a little girl, so I've told the minister that when they have the next class to come in, I'm going to join in. See what I can do to help the missions. She was chairman of the missions project.
Yeah.
And they help everybody, Africa and all over. They buy goats and stuff for them to have, you know, for food and milk and stuff. The missions is a great project they have.
Well, I built the addition and parish hall on the church, and when they asked me to do it, I was a little reluctant because I figured I was okay with a big guy, but when I got through with that project, I might not be. So church has been on again, off again in my life, but...
well, it has with me, same, Sam. I'm sure that the teachings at my mother's knee have slipped a lot in late years, but all in all, I think most of us are pretty good citizens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I wrote a column one time for the Anchor about the men that I grew up with, like Uncle Cliff Morgan and Cabori and John Morgan and those guys, you know, and they were great uncles and mentors. Ed Alexander, who was also one of our distant relatives, stopped what he's doing and built me a new skiff one time, and I complained about my skiff had leaking. Well, he said, let's build one. Build it right in the shop, and whatever he's doing, he said, go get some lumber, and we build a skiff.
Huh.
You can't beat stuff like that, you know.
No, sir.
I've tried to reciprocate all I could for young people.
Well, my grandson asked me to build him a skiff and help him build a skiff, how he put it. And so we built one together for him. Yeah. And it was a great experience.
Oh, yeah.
He only worked on it occasionally with me, but he's real enthusiastic about it. Yeah. And it was a really good experience for me.
Yeah, the stern in that skiff I think I gave you.
Yeah.
That came from my my nephew Gareth Morgan. It's my stepbrother's son. He's named for me. My name is Gareth, and he named me Gareth after me. But he was run over by a big lobster boat, almost killed him. Should have died. I don't know how he ever lived through it. And sunk it. Brand new skiff he just did built. And the only thing that was salvageable was the stern. I took the stern out of it. He didn't want it, and I took it home. When Sam said, you want to build a skiff, I said, look in the corner there and see if you can use that stern.
Yep, we did.
I guess you adapted it somehow.
We did. We cut it down a little bit, and it's floating right now.
That's good. He had just left us. I was stern tending for my brother that day. Just like 3 minutes, and this guy in a panic on the radio said, I've just run over a guy in a boat, a small boat. He said, get him aboard. He said, well, I headed for Waddles, and he said, he's complaining about his back. And he said, my brother told me, he said, that must have been Gary. I said, throw that trap overboard quick. We got over there, and that was that boat. Wow. Outboard wheels showing up, you know, turned over. God, I almost died. That stuff happens a lot. Fishing is a very dangerous game.
It is.
Fishing and farming, you know, your machinery and stuff. God. Guys get pulled overboard.
Well, you've done some writing too, Gary. What, some children's books?
Yeah, a lot. The first writing I did, I was as a guest at Dewey Gillum's place in Moosehead Lake. And we'd seen a mother bear and 3 cubs swimming around up there and thought that was interesting. Get a few salmon, come in, we were having lunch, and these guys pulled up in the next camp, and they had this object I could see on their anchor line going behind them. It was one of those cubs, and he hit him in the head with an oar and sighted his eye. Told him all, and then the little devil was on the floor of the edge of the lake walking around. He said, "Smoky Bear's got enough water," and I lost it.
Oh.
I called him everything but a human being. He took that bear up to Dewey's camp. And the guy that was with him was a reluctant participant of that. I guess he come over and he said, I'd like to talk to him. Dewey said, "Don't go in there." I said, "We just got him calmed down." And so anyway, he wanted the bear. He said, I'll take the bear and I'll take care of it. I said, "I'm watching his eye. If his eye continues to expand," I said, "I'll kill him." And I had to put him under his misery. So anyway, he was a nice guy. He come over and he said, "I'll take care of it, and I'll take the meat and I'll tan the hide and everything." Dewey was kind of a little upset with me. He said, "I got to stay here with these people. You're just pissed." And I said, "You tell me the route out." He said, "I've got a pair of legs on me, I'll walk out." I wrote that up for the Skowhegan paper. And that started in, finally I had an outdoor column syndicated, and I think I've written for every state every paper in the state except the Portland Press Herald and the Bangor News. And I never made any money at it, but I had a chance to give some good information as I went. Finally, when I was still working for the state, I started writing for the Lewiston Sunday Journal, and I wrote under my grandmother's name because I was working for the state. Someone could say, "Well, he's right there for first-hand information." That isn't fair. But anyway, I did that for a while, and I wrote the Bait Barrel Kids about growing up in Candace Harbor mainly. And I did the children's book, Love Crossing the Road. It's a back-to-back deal. Your kid always said, "I want another story." You just flip it over to another. But I've actually sold everything I've ever written. Everything I've ever written except the one I just wrote. I haven't quite sold it yet. And someone said, "That's amazing." But the thing was, I kept sending it till I found someone who'd buy it. And the little red booklet, "You'll Own the Maine Woods," that's been a great success. The safety officer at the time was John Marsh, and he now is retired. He wanted a booklet that dealt with safety in the woods, something that would carry. There are survival manuals that weigh 5 pounds or so. The Craighead brothers wrote one for the Air Force. There's 2 volumes, everything in it you could think of, but we wanted something that carries. So it's I should have brought one, a little booklet about this size, orange.
Yeah, every hunter should carry one of them.
And that's been printed over 1 million times.
Good.
And John was the safety officer and I was the writer. He edited it. We never made a penny on that except what we were getting paid for doing it. And I remember one time, this was years and years ago, I figured our share would have been $33,000. But that's just money.
Yeah.
The thing of it is, we know that it saves some people.
Yeah.
However, the first one I heard about was a state trooper who had a copy of that, and he went with 2 or 3 other state troopers deer hunting. He had this marvelous book, and they tried to grab it away, and he put it in his pocket. And of course, you know who got lost that day. They get him out 10 o'clock at night. When they saw I was all right, they started plaguing him. He said, "Why don't you read that book?" He said, "I sat on the stump, read it 3 times, didn't believe a word in it." And then John Ford, who illustrated it, John would send us an accent. It looked like a photograph. He was a good artist, so we had him illustrate it. And there was a couple of guys got out of state prison, and they were hunting for him. And one of them was a real bad cat, and I can't remember what the other cow did, but one of them, they wanted him bad out of it. So they finally got him. he called me up about 2 o'clock in the morning and said, we captured him. He said, did you have to shoot him? He said, no. I said, that's too bad. I don't see anybody hurt, but that guy didn't, he murdered children. And he said he had that book. And he's out there in Canada, in North Whitefield. And the woman just barely, probably in another minute she'd have been murdered too, because when she went in the front door, she had the back door closed, and they'd raided her ice box and everything. So that she probably would have, probably close she'd ever come to dying.
Yeah.
They did shoot at the trooper and John, and they hit the dog, the trooper's dog. They'd got a gun somewhere. He was the worst molester I ever heard of. In fact, they had camped near a bus stop hoping they could grab a couple of kids. I'm glad they got them.
So you're still writing?
Yeah, still writing.
Good.
I'm doing the cookbook now in my wife's honor.
Oh, good.
My daughter's a published author. Robert is a published author, and I am. And I always wanted Ann. She was a fantastic cook, probably the best cook in the world. And I always wanted to do a cookbook because I said, no, that would be all 4 of us as published authors. And she said, I won't do that. So. But she did. She inadvertently she did, because she had all these notes everywhere.
Yeah.
I've gathered the notes up, and I'm going to have it.
Yeah.
Probably it'll come out in September.
I know you like beans, and I've made a few beans for you, but that always reminds me of my mother, who was a great cook also, and she, like Ann, would keep little scraps of paper here, there, and everywhere, all around the kitchen of recipes, and that's how I came across that bean recipe.
I think, I always thought the best cook that I ever knew was the people that could, like I'd come in the house and I'd starve to death and nothing else to eat. Ann would be in there in 20 minutes, she'd have a meal. I'm sure your mother could do it. My mother could do it. I'd look in the cupboard, nothing to eat, and they'd come home and they'd get a full course meal. That's a good cook.
You know, I didn't finish that story. Then I came across Janet's family, the Beals, had their own recipe. Janet's father made beans every once in a while.
Oh, yeah?
So one day I had this brainwave. I kind of combined my mother's bean recipe with Janet's bean recipe. And came out pretty good, I think.
Well, I guess they are. I love them. They're very good. I remember my grandmother Anderson over at Strasbourg. My father had a machine shop. Right beside it, they had a little sawmill. And this uncle was he was absolutely genius. He had a rig set up, what they call a barrow. They could pick up a 6-cylinder engine and carry it to the sawmill, hook up the gas, hook up the water system. If they wanted to cut wood for a while, someone would give us an order for lumber, and they'd saw lumber for a while. And take it back in the machine shop, and he had this shaft that ran the length of the room with pulley on it. His valve grinder and his compressor and all that ran off that old engine. But so she always had a big kettle of beans stewing on the stove all the time, because customers coming in and out, and people hungry, and the boys working. And I loved those. She used to stew yellow-eyed beans. So every once in a while I'll get a bunch of yellow-eyed beans and stew them, and I love them. I just found out that canned pinto beans are very good too, very similar to stewed beans.
What's the name of them? Canned
pinto beans.
Oh, I never tried them.
There's a couple of brands. I get them at Hannaford. It just says pinto beans, and it's just like a stewed bean. Very tasty. But I wanted to ask you, you put some carrots in yours.
Yeah?
I like that, and I didn't know why you do that.
Well, I do that because it seems to make it a little sweeter. Not sticky sweet, but just a sweet taste to the beans.
Yeah.
And anything else you want to talk about while you've got the floor, Gary?
Well, I think Harpswell is a great place to grow up in. People are awfully kind to me.
Yeah. Must have been a great place to produce people like us.
Yeah.
That's a left-handed compliment, but I think it's quite true. The Bait Barrel Kids.
Oh,
tell us one of those.
That was
stories.
Frankie Beakers and my brother Clifton and me. And the reason we called ourselves the Bait Barrel Kids, Ann named us that. I'd tell us stories about what we did with bait barrels. We made skis out of the barrel staves. We hid in them and had those huge hogsheads down in Watson's store. I think they held 22 bushels.
22 bushels. Wow.
Huge hogsheads. You get right in them. Frankie Beakers was very nervous about rats. You in the bait barrel, we make a squeaky noise, you come out of it just like a shot. But so we used barrels a lot. And she said, referred to us sometimes the Bait Barrel Kids. When they did the story, I figured, well, that's a good story. And I get his Frankie's, my brother. One time we had this ski slope down across from where we lived. I don't know why in the devil we'd always do it. We'd always ice it, always carry water and ice it. There was a little spring there, and someone had carried a new rum barrel in there to put in the spring. So we took that barrel, Frankie and Clifton and I took that barrel up on top of that ski slope. We sat on the barrel, wondered if anybody could live through it, going down over there. And I was the oldest one and stupidest one, so they put me in the barrel and touched me off. Sam, I can't tell you how scary that was.
Well,
my mother tried for years to teach me to square dance 2 turns and I'd be almost sick.
I don't know how you could get your breath in there.
In that barrel, well, what was worse, it would go airborne and then hit again, you know. It was going like a shot. And the barrel always goes all kind of ways, but this one stayed true right to a big black spruce right in the middle of that. And it collapsed the barrel with me in it and knocked me unconscious.
Wow.
And I heard them creeping up on me. They figured I was dead, you know. So anyway, I come to and I could hear the feet creeping up on the ice, and they said, hell, he's alive, he's moving. And I got up, and Frankie tell you about it. He said, you get up and fall down, get up and fall down. My head was spinning. I never get sick. It hurt me so bad I didn't get sick, but I never forget what he said. And we walked up by the spring, that old barrel was there, and he said, boy, you messed that old barrel up, didn't we? And I thought, well, I'm not too good shape.
Yeah, worried about the barrel more than you.
And I reached down one time, I couldn't, I don't remember why I did it, but I reached down and took hold of my front of my skis, and they were, of course, barrel staves on it, and I started flopping like that. And I must have done 10 a dozen of those till I figured out what I was doing wrong. It's a wonder any of us ever grow up.
Yeah.
You know where that big place is on the hill there above Watson's store there?
Yeah, well.
Well, the back of that is a cliff.
Yeah.
You can't see it from the road, but there's a big cliff there, and it's quite a lot higher than this. We'd run and jump in the top of spruce trees and crash down through them, see, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
Go down through those spruce trees like a shot, and it's the snow at the bottom of it. It's awful.
Well, my brother and I played some pretty dirty tricks on our city cousins anyway.
I bet you did.
I'm sure you guys did
Yeah,
on people who were unsuspecting.
Yeah. There was a brat down in the Morning Glory camp that I used to torture. I had a neighbor named George Coombs. He used to live a couple houses from us. He came down in the summertime. He had this voice so deep it would spook a kid, you know. We didn't know him. And he had a big thing on his neck. He got hurt in a logging accident. And he traveled in a Durant car, old Durant. He had vases on the side for flowers, and his son would drive him around in a chauffeur's outfit with a buzzer cap. I bet that Morning Glory kid 50 cents I had something more wonderful than Candace Abbott than he had in Melrose. And he took one look at him and gave me 2 quarters. George told me one time, he said he was an old woods rat lived near him with 8 woodchuck all the time. And he'd always ask him to dinner, and he said no, he'd never eat with him. So one day George was hunting with this friend of his. They come by the camp, and the guy told him, anytime you go by the camp, check on whether I get bacon. He said, put some water in it, beans or woodchuck, whatever. He said he'd be on his trap line or something. So they went in this day, and there was what they thought was a woodchuck in there, and they put some water in it. And they said, why don't we try some? Maybe it's good, and we'll eat some with him sometime. If he isn't here, he won't know we don't like it. So they ate quite a lot of it, and he came in. How'd you like that? He said, it was good. He said, it's my first try at skunk. He said, George and his friend jammed in the door getting out of
Well, thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
It's always fun to talk to you.
Well, it's nice to talk about growing up. I had a great time.
Good.
Yeah, sounds great.
One of my favorite stories, it's too late to tell it now, but
Oh no,
No,
you
keep going.
keep going if you want to.
Ed Holbrook's store down there was the post office, and all the summer people, of course, delighted in going in there. And Christine would look at the card and make sure. One of them was a guy named Sleeper from up to Lisbon Falls, and he says, "Just tell me what they said." And he said, "I don't know who it's for." But there was a guy out of Pittsburgh that died, and then inside the house on the cupboard there was a wedge of cheese from Holbrook's store. So they said, well, that's what killed him, that cheese. So Mose Wallace he worked for Ed. When Mose Wallace came over one day and he said, the place is full of people getting their mail and everything. He said, Ed, you get any more of that cheese Sames killed Hen Griffin? He said, no, but I got a wheel just like it. He said, eat all you want. And Ed, by the way, when I was in boot camp, when I was in training, they sent me to the Maine Coast fishermen. And the whole thing was about Candace Harbor. Mother sent it down, and there was Ed and Uncle Freeland and Freeman Davis. Fishes all one, and fiddles all, fishes all some, and fiddles all one. Uncle Freeland braced back, and he said, I seen that sea serpent off halfway around, and he was boogerish looking. And Ed Holbrook is behind about 30 rum bottles. He got his arms around him. And the captain said, I don't want you to think nothing happens here at all in the window. Well, the guy said, he told me about it later, he said, I went away. He said, I'd come back in an hour, and he came back in an hour, and he gathered up all those rum bottles. And his picture tape behind him. There's always something going on down there.
Yes. Well, all right. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, all right.
Nice to talk with you.
Hey ho, roll and go around Cape Horn to San Francisco. Shantyman, sing, boys, pull on the line, and we're back in record time. Now at Bath down in Maine, they built many tall ships. They were paired up and flanked and launched down the slips. The strength of our nation was built on the pine of the mast trees that harnessed the wind. There was schooners and sloops and all kinds of small craft. There were warships with cannon both forward and aft, and the queens of the seas, downeasters and clippers, mighty proud men were their skippers, with their hey-ho